I got my laptop on my knee, chasing numbers like a bee. NFL stats on a Sunday, it's the life for me. Chasing data down the digital road. NFL stats, that's my country code. Yards, touchdowns, all that jazz. I'm sifting through data, it's the Stats Man's task. From the draft to the Super Bowl, I'm on this chase. NFL stats are my kind of place. Chasing data with my digital pen. NFL stats, I'll chase them again. So here's to the numbers, the plays and the score. Chasing NFL data forever.
Do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of Chasing Data, where we dive into the numbers behind the game of football. Thanks for joining in tonight. We'll get into the analytics of how these games take place, how stats tell the story of the NFL season and offseason on a week-to-week basis. A little backstory about myself. I spent years analyzing NFL stats, digging into the numbers that go unnoticed in the highlights, which led to me being discovered by the Do team, which led to me being here, where we'll explore these details in in-depth basis on a week-to-week basis. I'm thankful to be here and excited too. I have my good friend Jake, part of the Do team, who found me and got me involved with the Do team and is also the head of the analytics there. Tonight, we're going to cover a Super Bowl matchup, recap what happened there, each playoff team's needs, the best contracts of the season, franchise tag options for a few teams, and our way too early awards for 2025. But before we get started, let's hear a quick word from our sponsors.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliott Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
So, like I said, very first episode, really excited to get this started. Great opportunity for sure. And without further ado, I will bring in my good friend Jake from Do. Jake, what's up?
What is up, man? Super excited to be on with you for your first show.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a little ways. Took you a little convincing to get you on board with the idea that you should have your own show, but I think you got tons of great info to share, and I'm excited, man, to see how you take this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I had to have you on here first. I mean, you were the one that got me on your show for the first time for me to be on something live, so I couldn't have anybody else on here.
Do I see a Bills shirt on you? What
Yeah,
shirt are you wearing?
Yeah, I know.
Man?
I had to pay
Let's
homage
go.
to the group of people who brought me on.
Let's
So I had to get a
go.
Bills shirt,
Let's
at
go.
least something Buffalo related.
What's up, Jesse? Do Neffy with a far superior analytics show. It is. I think this is going to be the best analytics show, man. People are in for a big
I hope
treat.
so.
I can't wait to see what you got on. I know this one's a little more free agent focused and stuff like that, but you definitely get way into the analytics, and your breakdowns during the season are awesome. If people don't know, you provide a lot of great insight into matchups and player trends and things to watch for. So I'm super excited, man, to see what topics you got for this offseason.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, like you said, I mean, the box scores, anybody could see the box scores anywhere. Do Neffy, Chase, one of us. Appreciate it. But yeah, like you said, I don't really care to do box scores. I want something more in depth. Something to give casual fan or the sports junkie, something that they may not see that ESPN, Fox, CBS is covering. Tony Romo, Tom Brady, what they're saying. Something that breaks down more from the whole season or the week by week basis. But
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, like I said, let's go ahead and get into it. First off, I would just want to recap the Super Bowl. I mean, I think no one expected it to be the blowout that it was. I mean,
Right.
Sportsbook had it. I mean, the spread was 1.5 in favor of the Chiefs. I mean, it was basically a pick 'em going into it. But I mean, it was what, 34 to nothing? Was it 34 to
It's
nothing?
34-0, man, in the third
Yeah, it
quarter.
was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, starting off, just looking at the Mahomes, the passing game for KC.
Yeah.
I mean, we expected the Eagles to play zone, just use their athleticism to get to the ball no matter where they threw it. But what was crazy to me was the fact that Mahomes looked rattled for like the first time in what, 3 years?
Yeah.
It was, I think Brady said something in the game about, every little hit gets you a little more worried about the next hit. And
Mhm.
that's the first time I've seen him off because, you see him just create outside the pocket so often,
Mhm.
and he finds Travis Kelce over and over. I mean, he had so many missed throws that you don't ever see. I
It
mean,
was. I mean, they said it on the broadcast at the time, but it was very reminiscent of the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. Where the same kind of
yeah,
thing happened. Right? They had the offensive line issues, and man, they couldn't block up anybody. And yeah, I think that goes for anybody. I mean, we've even seen Josh Allen. We've seen Lamar Jackson like that. When you're
mhm,
getting pressured and you feel like you have no time to throw, man, it's tough to stay composed, stay patient. He had guys open. He had some guys down the field open, but he just couldn't get his feet set to make the throws. And I saw on NFL.com they tweeted out like Mahomes 3 touchdown performance highlights from the Super Bowl, right? And I'm like, the
yeah,
headline
yeah,
was brutal, but you click on the highlights. The first highlight is it's 34-0 with like 6 minutes left in the third quarter, and that's the first Mahomes highlight. Like, yeah, that
yeah.
that summed up the game for me. Like, it's the first highlight for Patrick Mahomes was, halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah, they need to crop out that score and that horrible score bug.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that game, like it speaks to how bad he was because I mean he had a negative 0.46 EPA per dropback, which was the second worst of his entire
yep,
career. And I mean,
yep,
if you take out those huge throws to Xavier Worthy, like after the game was over, I mean, you can say whatever. The Eagles weren't trying to the same level that they
right,
were in the first
right.
half. I
Dude, they
mean, that
had
was probably the
backups
worst
in
game
the
of his.
third quarter. It's
Yeah,
unreal.
I mean that was easily the worst game of his career. I mean that he had the high. It was the highest sack rate at 14.3%,
Yep.
sacked 6 times most of his career. And what's crazy about all that is
Threw a
like,
pick six.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that was Cooper DeJean's first interception, and to have it on his birthday in the Super Bowl
Yeah,
is
it was
ridiculous.
crazy, man. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what's
it was
even
unreal. I mean,
crazier,
the halftime was nuts to me. I mean, you saw Mahomes' halftime stats. He was like 6 of 11, like
23 yards and 1 first down. Yeah,
yeah.
it was
And
it was
what was?
ridiculous.
Did he have 2 interceptions by halftime, or was it just the one interception by
It
halftime?
was two
Like,
because remember they got the ball like inside their own 20, and he threw it to
mm,
Zach Bond right there
yep,
before the half.
yep,
But and what was crazy about it all is the fact that the Eagles did not blitz one time the entire game
yeah,
and had a
yeah. It was like only
38%
the
pressure rate.
It was only like the sixth time in the Super Bowl era that a team has not blitzed all game. Like
It's ridiculous.
unreal.
Like their front four is already good, but they I mean
Mm-hmm.
they just dominated the Chiefs offensive line, which is crazy.
Is do you think that's more is that more good Eagles or bad Chiefs? Or is it a stylistic, styles make fights kind of thing? Like where do you point the blame in this game? Like is it just the Chiefs just played a bad game and the Eagles played a really good game? Like how would you sum up that, you know, describing that game?
I mean, I think that they put I mean, I don't know what else they could have done, but from the Chiefs perspective, they put too much focus on Jalen Carter, which then they've kind of mixed and matched Caliendo and Joe
Do
Tooney,
you like
moved
that
them
Tooney
around.
played left tackle in that game?
Well, I mean, it had been good prior to prior to the Super Bowl.
He
Once
got a
they
little
moved it,
exposed against Houston.
yeah,
Um,
true, true. But I mean, it was serviceable whenever Mahomes is your quarterback, whenever he can
yeah,
escape in the pocket and make these crazy plays. But I think they focused too
yeah,
much on Jalen Carter, which led to the athleticism of Milton Williams and Nolan Smith, who's an athletic freak. Just
yeah,
going crazy. I mean, it was everybody, even Jalix Hunt. Somebody we
yeah.
never hear
Brandon
about.
Graham.
It was
Yeah,
yeah,
they were all eating, man.
it was just unheard of. I mean, you and then the second point to that is the fact that their run game was non-existent. I
Yep.
mean, we knew going into the game that basically their run game is them checking down the ball, throwing screen passes. It's just like extending the run game to outside the hashes
Yeah, and
almost.
they've been struggling to run for most of the year, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, even when they would try to throw those behind the line of scrimmage passes, it was Philly's athleticism that was just flying to the ball. They weren't
Yeah.
missing tackles. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, they didn't run in the second half because they were so far behind that there was no point.
Yep.
They did have 8 carries for 42 yards, which did surprise me, but the majority of that was Mahomes and scrambles. So it was minus
Yeah,
19
the
rush yards over expected. So
what
they
was that?
were
The
horrible.
first half, like the majority of their runs were on the first drive, and then they didn't run again the
Yeah,
rest of the
yeah,
half. Like,
yeah. Outside of Mahomes, I think P Ryan was their leading rusher, and he had like an 8 yard rush, 8 yard carry or something.
brutal.
But I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, I think this. I don't know what stood out more to you, Philly's dominance on defense or how well Jalen Hurts played.
See, I'm not surprised with Jalen Hurts because, you know, he's played good in, you know, the previous Super Bowl and he's had good games. I feel like a lot of it is when he's able to get into like that rhythm of like, I know you're blitzing me and you cover zero blitz or all out blitz him,
Hmm.
like he's perfectly fine with just throwing down the field to AJ Brown or Devon. I think that plays into his advantage. It reminds me a lot of Trevor Lawrence. Like when he knows what's coming, when he knows you're
Hmm.
blitzing him, he's a much better quarterback. When he doesn't know what's coming and he has to actually like think and analyze, he's not as good. He's not as
Yeah,
confident.
yeah.
And especially when you give him one-on-one looks with how great his wide receivers are, like he's going to take advantage of that. So
Hmm.
I think part of this was just it was a really bad matchup for Kansas City. Like they do not
Yeah.
match up well against a team like Philly where they can dominate both lines of scrimmage, right? Like Philly's O-line dominated the line of scrimmage, especially in
Yep.
pass pro. Like and so I feel like it was just one of those really bad matchups where the two teams just don't match up well together and then not to mention Kansas City didn't play their best game and Philly played a very good game. The ball bounced Philly's way, you know, for
Yeah.
the most part, and then that's what happens. It ends up being a blowout, and not taking
Hmm.
anything away from Philly. They played great. They have an unbelievable roster. I just don't think it was a good matchup.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you. I agree. Um, what's crazy about Jalen Hurts and that offense is that they were the first team to win the Super Bowl after being bottom five in pass yards per game in the regular
Yep,
season.
yep.
Like regular season, I believe they were around like 190 per game, and then he
Yeah,
threw
and a
for
lot of that
221.
was
And
like the situations of that season
yeah,
for them, right? I mean, like
yeah,
they had a lot of injuries. Devonta Smith was in and out. AJ Brown was in and out. Jalen Hurts was hurt.
yep.
Um, and then obviously you could just feed Saquon Barkley, and then you get
They're
up
ahead in
early in
games. Yeah,
games, and
yeah.
then you don't need to throw. So a lot of that to me was
Hmm.
more situational and not so much like how good or bad their passing offense is. Because I think anyone would put their weapons up there
Hmm.
with most teams, right? They're
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
top five probably in offensive weapons, even including
Yeah,
quarterbacks. So
yeah,
I think it was a bad matchup, and boy, it was great to see. But I think all of Kansas City's weaknesses fit perfectly into all of Philly's ability to exploit those.
yeah.
Even just the out corner situation and being able to take advantage of one-on-one matchups and the speed to threaten the safeties, and then obviously what Saquon Barkley does, right? And the Philly offensive line ability to manhandle the Chiefs defensive line,
Yeah.
and then they're so worried about Saquon they gotta bring guys up, and you're crashing Justin Reed down into the box, and I just think it was a perfect matchup, man, and good on
Yeah.
Philly for taking advantage of it.
I mean, like you said with Saquon, I mean, this was easily the worst game of the season for him. He was
Yep.
25 for 57, 2.3 per carry. He had a career low rush yards over expected, minus 48, which is ridiculous for him.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know. Is there anything? I don't think. What would KC do if they could do that game over? I mean, they did what they wanted to going into the game, which was stop Saquon. I mean, I
Yeah.
think 99% of America would say, hey, you need to, load the box, stop Saquon, make Jalen Hurts beat you. If he does, he does. And I mean, he did, but to a great
Yeah.
extent. So I don't know if they could have done anything different.
No, I agree with you. It's almost kind of like, do you not put so much emphasis on stopping Saquon?
Yeah.
But Yeah,
I
it's
mean, that's
tough, man.
revisionist. Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it was just, again, it was a perfect matchup. You had Chris Jones banged up and had, with the knee and not in
Hmm.
there a bunch, and I just think everything that could have gone bad went bad, and then once you get the snowball effect early in that game, and then the early pick six really swung it, and it just
Yep.
the narrative fit perfectly, man. It's kind of like what happened early in the season with our two teams, right? Ravens and
Hmm.
Bills, or that game script went about as good as it could have gone for the Ravens and about as bad
Yep.
as it could have gone for the Bills. It gets 17-0, right? Just like this game, and you have to you're panicking on defense. On offense,
Hmm.
you're pressing because you feel like you gotta get points, and so you're getting out of what your team does best, and so I think it just goes perfectly in the other team's favor. So
Yep.
a lot of it was just that early game script, and the early turnovers, and just yeah, I think if you played that game 10 times, you're not gonna get that kind of outcome.
Yeah.
Um, so, but again, good on Philly, man. They showed up. They're prepared. A lot of people were knocking that coaching staff
Hmm.
and that team and saying they couldn't put it all together right for a complete game, and and,
They
and they
did.
did, man. They
Yeah.
they played
Yeah.
a complete game. It was impressive.
It's just hard to believe that Kellen Moore wants to leave that to go to Cap Hill and New Orleans.
Yeah, and
I mean,
I feel like for him, he's kind of at that spot where like, um, he's been in the talks for a couple years to be a head coach, right? He's had
yeah.
interviews, and um, part of it is like, if not now, when? Is there a
Yeah.
perfect
Don't
situation?
want
I
to
don't
miss your
know,
opportunity. Yeah.
right? And I feel like too, like if he's going there. I thought that was going to be like a Texans job from a couple years ago, kind of like a
Hmm.
lame duck one year guy, and then
Hmm.
you find your guy after that, and you kind of reset. But they're Mickey Loomis, and they're not wanting to ever hit the reset button, is why you then try to go get a Kellen Moore and see what you
Yeah.
can do, and can you kind of get back to 500-ish, and then next year you try to piece more together. And I don't know, man. I think until you get a new GM in there, that Kellen Moore's kind of doomed. But
Hmm.
man,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, the roster is just so old at this
it's
point. Like
bad, dude.
they're
It's
way past their
They're in
prime.
bad
So
cap situation. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
bad,
it's
man.
just all around bad.
Mahomes is
Matt
one and
said, yeah.
three in the playoff games after beating Buffalo. He's 0-3 when he beats Buffalo at home.
Oh,
The one win he had after was when they beat the Bills in Buffalo. So
well,
it's kind of like the Detroit effect from this year, which every team after they played Detroit, lost the following
yeah,
week,
yeah, yeah.
or had a letdown. So
I love that Jake's beard is a linear curve and Chase's is a scatter plot. These guys are all about data.
we're method analysts. So
Yeah.
0-2 in the Super Bowls. Yep. All right. Well, what's the next topic? Let's
Yeah,
let's
enough of
turn
that.
the
I mean,
page on
yeah,
2024.
all done.
Let's get into
Uh,
what we have to look forward to in 2025.
so for all the teams that made the playoffs, just want to run through. We can take turns with each team, or both go for each team, I should say, and just give like a quick, what do you think this team needs the most to take that next step for the next season? So we're going to do it basically in reverse order, teams that were eliminated first. So I'll start first with Denver. And to me, Denver's biggest need is playmakers. How they're going to get that? I don't know. I would love to see them in the draft somehow move up to get Tyler Warren out of Penn State, that tight end.
What
'Cause I think
about
he would.
like Ashton Genty going to them?
I've seen that mocked a few times,
Yeah, I don't know
but
if he gets that far. I think they'd have to move up, but
yeah. Well, I mean, Tyler Warren, like almost every mock has him going at 9 to New Orleans because New Orleans
yeah,
is losing Juwan Johnson. I mean, they have Foster and Moreau, but I mean that's nothing great,
yeah,
So I mean, I
yeah.
think
And
they just
you've
need
seen
playmakers of any sort.
Sean Payton use tight ends before, right? And have great
Yeah.
success with Jimmy Graham, and so yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with
What
you.
you? Yeah.
For me with them, it's the run game, the lack of run game, man. Like, I
Hmm.
don't like the running back by committee. I don't, I think they need like a Kamara, someone explosive in the backfield, that can kind of
Yeah.
do it all, or even more like a bell cow guy, like an Ingram when they had that.
Hmm.
Um, they need something more from that backfield, and I think that really takes that offense to the next level when you have to pay attention to the run. You don't have to respect that run game. I mean, you just don't, and you saw that, against Buffalo, where they didn't have
Yeah.
to put anyone in the box, and they're running 4 and 5 man boxes, and then
Mhm.
letting them, defend the pass, and clog the throwing lane. So for me with
Yeah.
Denver, it's they got to figure out the run game. They cannot go 3 guys and 6 touches a piece or something like that. And I think that makes that offense so much more explosive. But I definitely think tight end too. They got to figure something out because you can't have nobodies. They had 3 nobodies that they would line up at, at tight
Yep.
end. So
Yeah. I thought coming into this year that Audric Estime, the rookie, would end up
yeah,
being the starter by the end of the year. But I mean,
I agree with
I
you.
think he underachieved based on what we thought and what the Broncos thought probably as an organization. But
Right, and then
uh,
you saw glimpses of something from Jaleel McLaughlin too, and he had a little pop to him and a little speed and explosiveness, and then
yeah,
they just don't give him the ball. So I don't know.
uh,
They just got to figure that out.
yeah. Okay. You want to take Green Bay first, or you want me to go again?
Sure, you can go with Green Bay. Go ahead.
Okay. You saw the video of Josh Jacobs saying that they need a wide receiver one, and I mean, I agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of wide receiver 2, 3s and no dominant players. And for the people who say Christian Watson is dominant, out of the
Yeah.
51 games in 3 seasons, he's missed 13, and now he has a torn ACL.
Yeah.
So I mean,
The,
as
the the
dominant
one
as you
that's the
may want him to
most
be,
disappointing
good.
for me is Jaden Reed, because I
In what
think
sense?
that
Underperforming or?
yeah, I think that's
Oh
the
yeah,
guy that could be your wide receiver one as far as like a dynamic guy you can use all over the place, a
do it
focal
all. Yeah,
point, line them up all over, right? Run different routes, stretch the field. I feel like Christian Watson's more of like a one trick pony, right? He's more of like,
yeah,
and maybe that's a little harsh, maybe more like a Jamison Williams, where he is that dynamic threat down the field, but he doesn't run the full route tree. He
mm,
doesn't, command double teams. He doesn't really scare people outside of vertically. And I think that's where Jaden Reed could be that guy, like all 3 levels of the field. But he just didn't show up, man. And then he had some, injury stuff. And
yep,
I
yep.
don't know, man. But I agree with you. I think wide receiver one it's got to be the case because the wide receiver by committees just hasn't worked with them. Those guys are just way too inconsistent. You've seen wide receiver committees
Hmm.
work, but you have to have guys who are
Everything.
reliable, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're not, man. Their drop rate's way too high, and then they're
If they're
always
not,
injured, man.
yeah, that's exactly
How
it.
many
Yeah,
games did
there's
all
one of them.
4 of them play at the same
Yeah,
time?
I mean, probably zero. I mean, think about Dobbs with the
Right,
concussions.
right.
Christian Watson, hamstring, knee, whatever. Jaden Reed's getting hurt. It's always something.
Yeah,
And
and then
if
you
they're
got
not hurt,
Musgrave
Jordan
and
Love's
Tucker
hurt.
Kraft, their tight ends, who one
Yeah,
of them's always hurt too, and it's like they got all
yeah.
this
It's
talent and
just
weapons, but no one can stay on the field.
maybe they bring back Devontae. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
kind of what
could
they
be
need.
worse.
They don't need speed or vertical threat, right? They need a possession kind of guy. I mean, like a T Higgins style would be like so
Yeah,
sick for them, right? A guy who
I
can get
know.
a bucket, who can run the. They need a guy who can run short and intermediate routes,
Yeah,
on the outside. And yeah, I agree with you, man. I also do worry about that defense. They got to
yeah.
figure out the secondary corner, outside corner, with the Jair stuff, and
Hmm.
um, I do worry about that. And then linebacker for me with them is so inconsistent. Um,
I
so
almost
yeah,
wonder if they will be like a sneaky team to go for Miles Garrett, just because like Rashawn Gary, he's
mhm.
been good, but he's more of like a DN number 2. He's like your secondary to someone who's superior.
Right,
Like if they went and got
right.
Miles Garrett, that may take them to that next step
Right,
where
then
they
they
don't
have
really
Clark,
matter
but
what wide
Kenny
receiver they have.
Clark needs something too. Yeah, they
Yeah,
were always way better when they had like Preston Smith and Devondre Campbell and multiple guys. Yeah, I mean
yeah.
every team arguably could use more
Miles Garrett.
DN help. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean even Philly, right? They got to
Hmm.
restock too. So
Yep. Okay. Next up, I got Pittsburgh. For them, I think it's as simple as just somehow figuring out the quarterback of the future. Stop doing ever since Ben left. It's been year to year. Oh, we got this mid-tier, mid-level quarterback, Kenny Pickett. Uh, then we go to Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Before that, it was 4 other guys that didn't matter. It's just
Yeah.
never. It's always like depend on the defense. Have one
But
good
what's the
receiver.
solution?
I don't know. I mean, there's no one in free agent. I mean, Sam Darnold's in free agency, but I mean, outside of
Right.
that, it's Justin
You want
Fields.
Is Rodgers going there? Like,
I know. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised
right.
necessarily.
They
but,
almost need like they almost need to do like Justin Fields again for one more year.
mhm.
And draft somebody
Draft
that's a little
someone,
more
yeah,
of a
second, third
project,
round. Yeah,
like a Jackson
Milrow.
Dart, Tyler Slow,
Yeah,
or even
even
one of the
Milrow
guys, right?
behind
Milrow,
Justin Fields. Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's worth a
But
shot if
yeah,
they want to run that kind of quarterback.
yeah. But you could even go like a Kyle McCord or a
Hmm.
Justin Leonard. There's a bunch of guys you could take a flyer on,
Yeah,
and you get them in
but I
your
think
building for a year, right? You have Justin Field play, or whoever. I don't, I wouldn't pay Darnold, but
no,
um,
me either.
I don't even know who else you would go to after that, like veteran wise. But
I mean,
that's
there's
why I
really
would
no
do
one.
Justin
I mean,
Field, Justin Fields, and then you have your rookie back there for a year, develop him, see how it goes, and then next year you figure out what you want to do. The quarterback crop's supposed to be better. You can see how this rookie looked, and then also see what happens with Justin Fields. Not that I'm expecting much, but part of the issue with that offense is they got to figure out something on the outside besides Pickens.
mhm.
It can't
I
just
mean,
be
he's
the
not
Pickens
reliable
show.
with his
Not at all, man.
attitude. Yeah, nonsense that goes on in the middle of the game. So,
Right.
I mean,
And
I
then
don't
and
know. It's
then your
almost.
next your next option can't be Calvin Austin.
Yeah, no.
Like
I mean,
Mike Williams. Like
it's almost like they're near that point where they need to. They're not close to a Super Bowl. Like I don't think they're
right.
contending for a Super Bowl anytime soon. So it starts to
Not
get
till
to
they get
that
that
point where,
quarterback figured out, man.
yeah, and it's
And then you
almost
got
like
Najee.
reset.
Najee's up. Jalen
Yep,
Warren's up. Like that offense needs an overhaul. But do you trust Pittsburgh to be able to overhaul it? Right.
with
Like
Arthur Smith.
right with Arthur
I mean,
Smith, who I
so,
think
yeah,
is atrocious offensive coordinator.
I agree. So I don't know. I mean, they can stay having a bleak future as long as I'm a
They're gonna
Ravens fan.
win
So
9-10 games again.
yeah.
You know.
Yep. So on to the next one, Minnesota, who left in the first round, surprisingly. I say surprisingly based on their regular season
Mm,
record, but
yeah.
I mean you got Sam Darnold, so you never know
Right.
what ghosts you may
The
see
big
in the
thing
middle
for
of the
that
game.
team was Christian Darrisaw getting hurt on the left side.
Hmm.
That team
Hmm.
changed. They weren't the same after that.
Yeah.
That's when Darnold started seeing ghosts, and when
Hmm.
when he gets time and has a clean pocket, especially with those weapons, he's great. He can make every throw. He's got the arm talent. The issue with him always is under duress when he feels like he's got to speed things up a little. He's a
Yeah.
disaster, man, and you
Yep.
saw that when they played a good pass rush. He's a disaster, and for me, I would want to stay as far away from him as possible, just
Hmm.
because I feel like the cost is going to be way too high. If you could get him
Yep.
again at 15 million or whatever, anything under 20 million, you could probably convince my arm, twist my arm and do it, and then hope JJ McCarthy at some point during the year or whatever can come in and be your guy. But
But yeah.
man,
Yeah. We're gonna talk more about them whenever we get to the franchise tags. But yeah, I mean I think it's as simple as figuring out the future of the quarterback for them.
yeah.
Um,
Because the rest of the roster you like. I mean, then you got to figure out running back, right? Because Aaron Jones
yeah,
is
John's free
free
agent.
agent, but obviously wide receiver they're set. The defense looked really good with Flores, and they'll find some guys
Yep.
in the back end. They got some question marks in the back end. Harrison Smith's another year older. Bynum's done there, free agent. So corner, they got to figure out a second corner.
Yeah.
But
So we'll see.
I
I
trust
mean,
Flores to figure that side out, and it's just
Kevin O'Connell is still Kevin O'Connell. So
right. So running back, and then what are they going to do at quarterback?
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah, I love that.
Aaron
He actually,
Rodgers, yeah.
the scary thing is he actually makes a ton of sense for that team and that offense. Like just because as long as the premise is it's just until JJ McCarthy is healthy, hopefully he is healthy, right? Like then I'm giving him the reins again. But he would
I
be
think
a
it's
great
that.
bridge quarterback, man. Like
But
he'd
is
be
he also
great.
going to listen to Kevin O'Connell? Is the thing. You know how Aaron Rodgers wants to run his playbook.
But that's my
So, I
thing
mean,
with Kevin
yeah.
O'Connell. I wouldn't care because I'd bring in I'd have a third quarterback there, whoever it is. I don't freaking care who it is. It could
Daniel
be
Jones.
Daniel Jones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. And if Rodgers is too much, you just get rid of him, man. I would just do a 1 year deal, kind
Mhm.
of thing. And like I said, 15 million, something like that. If he doesn't want it, then whatever. But
Yep.
he
No,
makes
I
a
agree.
lot of sense on that team, especially if they get a running back figured out.
I mean, Aaron Jones, it wouldn't surprise me if he comes back again because, I mean, he just left Green Bay.
Yeah.
I
The
mean, he
only
did
issue
well
with
in
him
that
is
offense.
he couldn't stay healthy, man, and that
Yep.
offense really struggled when he got hurt. And so, I
Mhm.
wonder, do they want to go younger? This is a pretty good running back draft. I mean, could you imagine Ashton Jeanty on that team? Like, oh my God! But there's other
Yeah,
good
I
running
know.
backs too. I just feel like you get that running back situation figured out with those weapons, and Darisaw comes back healthy. You could
Yeah.
put most people behind that offensive line.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay. The Chargers. They're kind of like the Broncos to me. Same division, and they need the same thing, more playmakers. Uh,
Hmm.
I would love the perfect matchup for me in my head for them is if they somehow got T. Higgins.
Yep. I
Make
was
him
just
number
thinking the
one.
same thing.
Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey is good, could be great, but I don't know that he's a number one receiver
No, but it
archetype,
lets him. They would
do
fit
everything else.
perfectly together. I
Yeah.
think. I think then you have your Quentin Johnston in his rightful place as your like wide receiver 3, deep threat kind of guy, right? And then you
Yeah.
have your go get a bucket, Lad McConkey, work the middle of the field, right? And then you have your T. Higgins outside 50-50 possession guy, right? Like that would be a nice, 3-man team there.
Yeah.
I
He
would
would
love
fit the
that
mold
fit,
of
man.
all Chargers being injured all the time. So
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. No, I mean, I think that's what they're missing, man. And there's, plenty of guys they can draft as well. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, tight end too. Tyler Warren that'd be another great spot for Tyler Warren. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
would work out really well with that play action offense. We've seen what Greg Roman can do with a good tight end. We've seen Justin Herbert over the middle with a good tight end. I also think a good tight end helps Lad McConkey too. They can
Mhm.
work off each other. Um, and
No Stone
so
Smart for you.
I won a lot of money on Stone Smart, but I don't think he's a guy you want to feature, and that's what they
Yeah.
need, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about they need features. You can't just have Lad McConkey, and then they got to figure out
Mhm.
running back too, right? J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. Does he
Yep.
come back? They also need more sustainability there, right? Like he's a injury-prone guy, another Charger
They just
special.
brought. Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Yeah.
defense, they got to figure that out too, right? Khalil
Khalil
Mack's
Mack's
up.
gone. Yeah.
Puna Ford, it was a monster for them, and now he's a free agent, probably going to get paid. So they got to figure out
Mhm.
that D line. And then that
I mean, I think they
secondary, just
overachieved for what they had. So I mean,
1000%, man.
any additions is going to be
Part of the problem with
exponentially
them
better
too
with
is
With Harbaugh.
who they played and who they beat, right? They kind of
Yeah.
like beat up on the bad teams and had a pretty
Yeah.
soft schedule. And when they
Yeah.
played
True.
good teams, they lost. The best team they beat was Denver. And
Mhm.
so I do worry about that. I agree. That's a good point. I think they overachieved, and now, they lost a bunch of guys. So not only do you overachieve, but you're losing a bunch of guys. So you're going to
Yeah.
see a pretty big turnover with them. This is a big offseason.
For sure. Hey, Tampa Bay's next. If they could prevent the offensive coordinator from ever leaving, so Baker can have more than 1 year with an offensive coordinator.
Yep.
But outside of that, I think it's linebacker. Levante David is a free agent, but I mean,
He's going to come
linebacker is
back.
just,
If he
and
wants to
he's
play, he's
35
coming
years
back.
old.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
he still played great. I think
Yeah.
if he wants to come back, if he wants to play, he's gonna come back, right? Like that
Yeah.
guy's never leaving there. But I do
I
agree.
mean,
They got to figure out something. You got to have a
yeah,
succession plan or something.
yeah, because I mean, LB2 is not the plan as of right now. So I mean, they got to bring something
Right.
in.
Right.
But I mean, I think they're okay everywhere else. It's not like they have
Their
any glaring
secondary needs to
holes.
get healthier,
Yeah.
and they still got to figure out corner, man. With Jamal Dean and Carlton Davis leaving and stuff like that, they got to figure out that. And then Murphy, they got
Hmm.
to figure out the corner situation for me.
Yep.
And then I'm not a Todd Bowles fan, man. Do you like Todd Bowles?
I feel like it's run its course and it's time to move on. I mean, like it's just I don't know if
Yeah.
it's his mannerisms on the sideline. It just seems like he's ready to go home every game. It's
I don't
just
think he's a
not.
good game manager
Yeah.
either. Like,
Well, no, I mean, there was multiple
um,
times where he just like did not in the half situations where he just let the
yeah,
time run out, didn't call a timeout, would put them in worse situations than what they truly had to be in. I don't know. To this day, it's 2025, and I mean, you got teenagers who play Madden who know how to manage a clock better than these men who are paid millions of dollars every year, which is
for
just
sure.
completely baffling to me. I mean,
Yeah,
I know they have a lot
and who
more
have
going on,
guys
but
in booth or whatever that their job literally is like game management or
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
advisor. Yeah, it
it's
blows my
crazy.
mind. But I haven't been a big fan of his. I think they definitely got to figure out offensive coordinator. Wide receiver, Chris Godwin, what are they going to do with him? He's a free agent.
Yep.
I like Jalen McMillan, man. He looks good.
Hmm.
Um, but you got to have something outside of Mike Evans, another year older.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
Bucky Irvin was a big hit, um, and obviously Baker's playing well. So
Yeah, I mean, he's been great the last few years. So
they're
we'll
going to
see
be
what
the
I
same
mean.
team though, dude. They're going to be 10-7, 11 and
And it's the NFC
6.
South, so I
Yeah,
mean,
9-8. They're going to be right in that
yeah,
ballpark again. So
yeah. Houston Texans, I think this is easily offensive line. They had the
hmm
worst offensive line of any playoff team,
yep,
allowed 52 sacks, which was the most of any playoff team. I mean,
yep.
CJ Stroud, I mean, I don't know how much of it was the sophomore slump as much as it was that offensive line,
hmm
because I mean, he had no time the entire
I think
season.
it was both. I think it was both.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if he had a great offensive line, he would continue to succeed. That team would be much better. I mean, they had the Nico injury and everything too. They started off the
That's
season
the
with
other
too
thing for
many
me
wide
is
receivers, and then they had not
hmm
enough at the end, which was crazy.
they got to figure out that wide receiver room because Tank Dell, what a disappointing year.
Yeah.
And then anything outside of him, there was nothing after Diggs went down, man. And so they got to figure out wide receiver 2 and theoretically wide receiver 3. And
Yep.
so there's some free agents out there, but they're a little expensive. But they could do like the 1 year rental thing. I mean, Amari Cooper, um,
You're not
Chris
bringing back
Got
Diggs, huh?
Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
All those guys make sense. Of they need more of an underneath reliable guy who can run routes and just be something opposite. Um,
Of Nico.
Nico.
No way you
Um,
bring back Diggs, huh?
no, no way.
No, no, yeah, I didn't think so. Um, but I mean, they also are in that rookie contract window with CJ Stroud, so it's almost like they're
hmm
because the defense is definitely Super Bowl contender type. So I mean, it's almost like you have to go all in on the offensive side while you're still in that cheap rookie contract. But I don't know, offensive line is number one easily. Um,
Yeah,
looking at the Rams, uh,
they don't have a lot
sure up
of
to
cap space though for the
yeah,
Texans to go back to. I mean, that's the big
oh yeah,
thing. Um, yeah, that you could do some restructures and stuff like that, but um, they got to figure that out because they definitely have some holes, the offense especially,
hmm
like you said.
so back to the Rams, I think they just need to maybe shore up the secondary. I mean, the front four is way beyond where they should be on their timeline. Uh,
hmm
it's either that or figure out what's going on with Matthew Stafford. Like, I don't truly understand. I tweeted out about it today, but I truly don't understand about the trade rumors for him unless he's saying I want out of Los Angeles, which would kind of be weird unless there's something we don't know. Because he won a Super Bowl there, so he's definitely excelled in Los Angeles. But I mean, I don't know why he would want to lose. I mean, why he would want to move. The offense can click whenever he's going well. They were just 6 points down to the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl. I mean, that game could have flipped. They almost scored and won the game at the end. So I don't know where he would want to go instead of running that back because I mean that, like I said, that defense is ahead of their time, especially up front. And if they could do more on the back end, I
He's
don't know.
not going anywhere. That's the thing. Like even trading him, he's not going anywhere. His cap hit's insane. He's either retiring or he's playing.
Yeah,
Like I don't understand these rumors. He's not getting traded. He's not going anywhere. That contract cannot be moved, even if they trade him. If they trade him pre June 1st, it's a $45 million dead cap hit. They save $4.3 million by trading him. Like whoop de doo.
yeah. I mean they're not
If they
resetting.
post
Like I
six
don't see
one
that.
trade him, it's 22.6 million dead cap hit. and then 22.6 the following year. Like, there's no world where you're doing anything other than he's either playing or retiring. You could restructure him, sure, but the way he played and finished that year, like the way that roster set up, they were 6 points, one drive away from going to the Super Bowl. Like, I'm running it back with him, and and that roster mostly. I'm figuring out, wide receiver 2, without Cooper Kupp, if they're trading him, whatever they're doing with him. And I'm rolling with it, man. I don't understand that. I think he's a perfect fit there. It makes total sense. If anything, the way he closed out last year was amazing. And so I think it's just talking points. It could be a contract thing where his agent's leaking information to negotiate the contract or something. But
or his wife leaking information like she always does.
Dude. But it's $49 million cap hit this year, $53 million the next year, man.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I just
the only scenario, I mean, this doesn't even make sense, but the rumors of him going to New York, and then they're saying, oh, they want the number 3 pick. Well, New York would be absolutely stupid to trade the number 3 pick for Matthew Stafford. Like, they're nowhere near contending. So why would they throw that away? I mean, I don't understand that. Maybe you do, but I have no idea why they would do that.
No, I don't see a world where it happens. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think he plays, and then you just press. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't run it back.
So running it back, perfect segue for the next team, the Ravens. I mean, what do they need for the chips to fall in a different way next season? I mean, just like the luck of the draw. Replace Brandon Stevens. Outside of that, I mean, I feel that they have a Super Bowl roster. It's just, we get in the playoffs, and Kyle Hamilton was talking the other day. I heard him on a podcast, and he was talking about what they need to do better as a team, and that is the ability to play from behind. Like, even the team realizes that once they're down, they're not the same team. So, I mean,
how much of that are you worried about that being a Lamar thing?
I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like he presses regardless of if he's ahead or behind in the playoffs. Like, you saw the crazy plays against Buffalo. Yeah, it was frozen. I mean, the ground was frozen. It was cold.
Right.
But I mean, like, if he would have, the play where he scrambles and he has the ball 5 feet from his body, trying to hold on to it. Like, I mean, I know he makes some outstanding plays. But I mean, turnovers kill you, and I feel like it happens every year. Something stupid happens. And it's just like, it's the complete opposite of what you see with the dominance, where every year they go on like a 6-game winning streak and they look better than any team has looked in the last 10 years in the NFL.
But
and then they get to the playoffs.
They're the ultimate team that beats themselves, right? If you look at the games they lost this year, it's penalties, it's turnovers. Like, they beat themselves, and you saw that, against the Bills. Like you said, the Bills kind of just played a safe, close to the vest game, and they said, the Bills said, you're not going to run on us, essentially, and we're going to see if you can beat us, right? And the Ravens just kept making mistakes, and I think that's just what I'm worried about. Can they get out of that, and what's going to change that's going to get them out of that? I don't know. They have some things to figure out. What are you going to do at left tackle with Ronnie Stanley?
Stanley,
he's a free agent.
I think Macari's free agent.
Macari is a free agent. Those are the two big ones. You got to figure that out. Obviously, left tackle's massive, but I don't see them paying Ronnie Stanley. So they got to figure that out. Macari, I could see them bringing back because he's that Swiss Army, guy, sixth man. But they got to figure out left tackle, man. That's a big one. So we'll see, because they go as that offensive line goes, and Ronnie Stanley's been great when he's been healthy. So we'll see.
What do you think about Cooper?
You got the
Kupp
Justin Tucker
Baltimore
thing, dude. Justin Tucker. Justin
My wife
Tucker,
has his jersey.
She might want to burn that one.
Yeah, I know. It's staying in the
that
closet.
might have to be on an episode of Chasing Data, a little memorial service to Justin Tucker.
Yeah, it's done for that one. It's coming.
That's
gone.
tough, man.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. All right. Kupp. I don't like paying injury-prone old players when they've already shown they are regressing, especially at a position where I feel like you want cost control when you can, or you want a elite guy at his prime, right? Like I got no problem trading for T. Higgins, even if he's injury prone, because he's, 25, 26 years old.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not trading for a 30, year old wide, even 29, 30-year-old wide receiver,
Yeah.
and then and paying him, right? What Cup's making. It's different if it's a cost controlled contract, something like that, or a one year thing. So you're gonna trade an asset and pay him? Like, no. I think that type of player makes sense. Like Diggs, if you get Diggs on a prove it 1 year deal, right, with incentive laden, I think that would make a ton of sense. He's perfect fit for what they need. They need an underneath guy.
Yeah.
You want Zay to be more of your move piece, your stretch the field, your gadget guy, and I don't mean that negatively, right? I mean that like Zay's the true guy. You want to move him all over. You don't necessarily want him as like a volume outside guy, right? You want
Yeah.
you want to
For
move
sure.
him all over, and then I think you'd want to let Diggs work, slot underneath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what Cup too, right? And then let Bateman be your outside guy, right? And he can truly stay on the outside. And I think that puts those guys in the right place, right? But yeah, I think they got to figure something out. They need a alpha number one on the outside. I mean, even Amari Cooper would make sense on that team, just so it makes Zay not be the alpha on
The
the
focal
outside.
point. Yeah.
Right, because dude, his skill set's awesome. I love Zay, and that might have sounded like I'm negative on him, and I'm not. You want to free him up to move around, right?
He
You
would be
don't
better without being the focus. I mean,
1,000%, man. You could
Yep.
move him inside, outside. Try to match him up on certain players, and the defense has to focus on someone else too, right? And I really think that's what Baltimore's been missing for a long time is someone else, besides the run game and Lamar.
and
And
tight
it can't
ends.
just be right and Mark Andrews, because then it lets you just stay in the middle of the field, right?
Yep.
And it can't just be Zay. It needs to be someone else. And so yeah, I think they got to figure something out. I think that's a great point. I don't think Cup's it because he's a slot only. Diggs I think is turning into more of a slot only.
Mhm.
So you got to find someone who can be on the outside and command.
Bring back
some
Hollywood
attention.
Brown.
I don't think he commands attention though. Is the only
Yeah, I mean,
problem.
he would just take maybe. I don't think they'd pay attention to him going down the field because he's going to drop it anyways. But I mean,
Right.
back to Cup. I mean, he also with his age, he doesn't have just wide receiver miles. Like he has running back miles as well. Because I
For
mean,
sure.
he does not play like the typical
Well, he
wide
hasn't
receiver.
played a full season in what, like 5 years or something like that. 4 years.
Did he
so-
did he play the full season that he won Triple Crown?
Yeah, that was what
Oh,
3,
yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. So
But
I
then
don't know.
before
We'll see
that,
what
he didn't
happens.
play a full season. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just been injury laden career. But
Yeah.
kind of like the same thing with the next team, which is Detroit. I mean, signed depth, so they're not playing their eighth string secondary player, in the playoffs. Or, that's another team I want to see possibly try to trade for Myles Garrett because they are definitely in win now mode. I mean, would you give up all your assets to get Myles Garrett? Because I feel like it's either win now or
see,
you're going to start paying people.
I think a lot of it is overreaction to last year and all the injuries they had. I
Yep.
think Hutch coming back full health is a game changer. He is a Myles Garrett-esque. He's right up there, if not a tier, barely below. But I mean, you saw the year he was having last year. I mean, he was
Yep.
right there, defensive player of the year caliber. We're talking about a broken leg. We're not talking about ligaments or knee or something where you're really worried about him coming back. He almost came back at the end of the year, so a full off season. I don't think it's going to be like an all rehab. So I expect him to hit the ground running.
Yep.
I do think they do need something opposite him. I just don't know if he needed to go all in on that. I mean, I could maybe see like a Trey Hendrickson would be unbelievable
Yeah, no, I
opposite
agree.
him, right? Like that the pocket compression of Trey Hendrickson with the speed of Hutchinson would be amazing. They do got to figure out something opposite him. I totally agree. I think that's their biggest weakness. And then I do worry about the secondary on the outside at corner.
Yeah.
They need to
Carlton
figure
Davis
that
is
out.
gone. Yeah.
Carlton Davis is gone. Terrion Arnold was kind of up and down.
Hmm.
I love the safeties, but they got to figure out the corners for me. I think the biggest thing for them is offensive and defensive coordinator,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's my
You
next
lose
question.
both
Yeah.
your coordinators, and what are you going to get from the new guys? How's that going to go? Is there a learning curve? Are we taking a step back?
Yep.
Obviously, I love their roster, and I don't think anyone thinks they're going to have near the defensive injuries, right, that they had.
Hmm.
Um, so they're going to be really good again, man. It's just, can they hit on another draft pick or two in these key areas on the D line, outside corner? And if they do, watch out. But at the same time, you saw Philly when they lost their coordinators. It took them, a whole another
Time. Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
right? They had to replace both of them again,
Yep.
and then you
To get it right.
saw,
Yep.
right, to hit home runs on those. So we'll see if they get it right. But that roster's good, dude.
Yep. Um, so we're down to the final four. Washington. I mean, their defense. They're losing all of Dan or some of Dan Quinn's guys. I mean, they could
Yeah.
replace some of them. Secondary though. I mean, that's what I think. I
God,
mean, Bobby Wagner is a free agent, so I mean, I feel like he's going to come back. He was at a
they'll
press
come back to
conference for
them. I
something.
think so too.
But
But you got to figure out corner, right? You got Lattimore,
mhm,
who's always hurt, but
yeah,
didn't look good when he played.
he did not. He was awful, honestly, this year. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know what his rating was or PFF grade or anything, but I mean, he was not what they expected him to be. I believe. I
Yeah.
mean, Saints actually made a smart move by getting rid of him. But yeah, they definitely have to shore up that secondary. And again, it's the same thing as the CJ Stroud. The CJ Stroud thing is, got to capitalize on Jaden Daniels' rookie contract. I mean, we're only in year one of this. You got a few more years to go
Yep.
all in.
Yep. Well,
So
that's a Miles Garrett spot, right?
yeah, yeah,
That's a T. Higgins spot. Like, they got the cash. I agree with you, man. If you're talking capitalizing on that rookie contract, I think they need a big splash somewhere on offense or defense,
yeah.
to go all in. I just don't, any of those guys, Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson, I think all would be huge for that D line, and
Hmm.
yeah, they need to figure out something wide receiver as well. I liked what you saw from Diami Brown late in the year, but that's like they have a couple wide receiver 3 and 4s, and
Yep,
Terry
yep.
McLaurin, who's great. But I think if you want to maximize what Terry McLaurin is, you need a possession reliable
Hmm.
guy. Zach Ertz was kind of that, but you saw he kind of got nicked up. He had some
He's
injuries.
getting older too. I mean,
He's getting older, and so they need kind of like a possession reliable guy that you can't just focus on McLaurin, and then it lets De'Ami Brown and Zacchaeus and guys like that stay in their role. So yeah, I mean, I think T Higgins would be a perfect fit. But even like Keenan Allen, that'd be a great spot for a veteran like him. Diggs,
yeah,
Amari Cooper, all those same things. So and then they got to
yeah. I
figure out
mean,
running back. I think, right? I think
kind
they
of a
need
committee that
more.
was no one
Right.
wanted to dominate. Yeah.
Right, and Brian Robinson was getting hurt, and he's not really like a game breaker. They got him for one more year, um, so
If
you could
Eckler, I mean,
draft.
Eckler was hurt. I mean, he's getting older,
Right,
especially
he's
for a
getting
running back. I
older.
mean,
You got him for through 2026 as well.
yep,
So I think this is where you kind of maybe look at for them drafting
yeah, for sure.
a speed guy, a guy who can come in and a change of pace maybe.
Yep.
Um, Tight end, without Ertz. I think that's another area. But yeah, I think you nailed it, man. They need a difference maker on defense, D
Hmm.
line, corner, something like that.
Yep. Um, I will say something quick, and I will let you speak on this one. Buffalo, wide receiver one for me. Keon Coleman has not shown that he's wide receiver one material yet. He could, but as of now, Josh Allen needs a go-to target. And I'll let you carry on about that because you know way more about the Bills than I do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's D line. It's all D line. I want all assets, all money, revamping and going after the D line.
Yep.
Sure, I would love a alpha wide receiver one, right? But I don't really care. I think
Hmm.
I'm fine with just drafting a guy who fits the profile that they need. They need a outside speed element to that offense, and I don't care what that is. If it's if they can trade for someone. I would much
Yep.
rather like to see it in the draft. But I'm not too worried about their weapons, man. I think they have good weapons. I really like Shakir. I like Keon a lot. I like Kincaid. I like Knox. Um, and so for me, it's not so much the offense. It's for me, it's the defense, and that's
Hmm.
been their bugaboo, man. In the playoffs, whenever they face the Chiefs, when they face the Bengals, it's that D line disappears, man. And for me, you saw it. You know, if you're gonna beat the Chiefs, you gotta have a Tampa Bay D line. You gotta have a Philly D line. You gotta be able to get after it, man. And they just haven't had the horses to do it, and when they did, they had injuries. And so for me, it's I would just revamp the D line. I would draft probably two D tackles, one technique and then a backup to Ed, or another one technique if you can't get one in free agency. Um,
Yep.
I think they need at least two edge defenders, whether that's trading for one or drafting two. I don't think you can overdraft on either line.
Hmm.
And that's it for the Bills. And then a corner, an outside corner. They got to figure out, what they're going to do out there. I don't think they're bringing Rasul Douglas back, so I think you're going to draft someone. They have a really good track record of hitting on draft picks at corner, so I feel like they can find someone who fits the style. I think they're going to try to play a little more man. You saw that this year. This is the most man they've played. And so I think they're going to get a different corner who can play some more man. They tried to do that with Kyrie Elam. It didn't work out, but Christian
Hmm.
Benford is a true cornerback one. And so I think you just try to find a cornerback two, either a veteran and draft a guy. And outside of that, I really like where the roster's at. I think it's a really
Yep.
good team. I just think they need a couple pieces. They got to hit a couple, they have plenty of draft capital, and I think they'll be there, or they make a big splash, man, and go after one of those big DNs like we talked about. And I
Yeah.
think that would be huge too. They have, two second round picks this year and a first round pick, and so, you hit on those, and that can change a team that's,
For
on
sure.
the brink, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's it for me, man. I want it all on the defense though. I want D line and that corner, and I'll be happy.
So, do you still feel the same, or I mean, the James Cook drama that's going on right now? Or I say drama, but with him
Yeah.
wanting an extension. If you don't bring him back, then I mean, what do? You go to the draft? I mean, or if you don't extend him, I mean, if he holds out or whatever.
So I mean, you have him through 2026, right? So
Hmm.
you have him this year signed. So I would go into the year. I wouldn't sign him. I think he's gonna want too much. I wouldn't
Yep.
want anything over 10 million, and that's with some finagling in there. Like, I just wouldn't want to pay that. Anything more than that. He's not a complete running back. He plays about
Hmm.
50% of the snaps. He's not good in pass pro. They take him out in the 2 minute drill and stuff like that because of that. So he's a limited back, and so for me, I don't want to invest big money in a running back, let alone a limited running back. Um,
Yep.
so I just I'm staying away from that, man. Like, I don't even want to get near 15 million. I don't even want to get over 10 million. So I think running backs are replaceable. They have a very good offensive line. You have Josh Allen, and so for me, I would be fine trading him this offseason.
Hmm.
His value's never going to be higher. He's coming off a
Agreed.
fantastic year, and so I wouldn't mind trading him, picking up a third, fourth round pick, whatever, fifth round pick, and then drafting the next running back in the third, fourth, or fifth round,
Yep.
and going from there. I think Ray Davis showed he can be something. I think they have to bring Ty Johnson back because of his role and what he does, and he's such a good fit. And I think Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, and a rookie can get you at least close enough. And then you could spend that money elsewhere. So I mean, he's a 5.6 million cap hit this year,
Yep.
and 5.2 of that you can recoup by trading him. So I think with 5.2 million, you can make a nice dent or make up that gap. So yeah, the
Yep.
James Cook thing's silly to me, man. Like, he wants to press the issue. I have him trading him. I don't care. He's not that good to me. Like, and I like James Cook a lot, man. He's grown a lot. He's really grown as a really good player, but he's not Barkley. He's not CMC.
Yeah.
That's not who he is, man. He's
Not
not
a game
Derrick
changer.
Henry.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
not. He's not.
No,
So
I get that.
um, for running backs, unless it's one of those guys, I'm not paying them.
Yeah.
I've always been a don't pay a running back a second contract. So
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. Moving on to KC. They got two things. I mean, Trey Smith's going to be a free agent. The offensive line already didn't look that great, so that's probably a focal point. But then
I
you
don't think
also
they
get.
can bring him back. I mean,
I don't think they. I don't think they
I think
can
he's going to
either
be
for
a
what he's
30
going to want.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
I
agree.
mean,
It's
if
kind of
I'm
like the
him,
Ravens and Ronnie
yeah,
Stanley,
yeah.
right?
But
Like you
if
want
I'm
him to
Trey
come
Smith,
back.
I've already won two championships.
Hmm.
Let me go make my money now. You know, what I mean, I'm
Totally
already
agree.
a
No,
two-time champion, so
perfectly
what's the
said.
point of staying here? But
And you saw what guards are getting paid, dude. Like not
yeah,
even good guards. Like we're making 20 plus million. Well, he's a very good guard. So I think he's going to get north of 25 million and could be pushing
yeah,
towards 30 million.
yep. Send me to Chicago if I'm Trey Smith. You know. But I mean, the other thing is, what's going to happen with Travis Kelce? I
Yeah.
mean, he has
Hmm.
last season, you know, he had the downswing during the regular season, and then once the playoffs got there, he turned it back up. He was the old Travis Kelce. This
Yep.
year, he stayed down. He was started down and stayed down the entire time. You saw in the Super Bowl. I mean, it was an off game, or maybe it was just a one-off game, but that connection just, I don't know if it's the athleticism that is deteriorating. The only person that's undefeated is Father Time. And I think it's starting to catch up with him. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he could be cut because I want to say they save like 17 million, I think is what it is. If they cut him, it's only a 2.5 million dead cap this year. If with a potential out if they get rid of him or he
His cap
retires,
hit's
whatever.
more than that this year. Pulling it up right now, but it's bad, man.
19.8.
19.5 million cap hit, and there's
Yeah.
not much they could do about it. Yeah, 19.8, and the dead cap's only 2.5. So, like you said, they saved 17.3 million. Um,
I mean, I think they have to start, regardless of if they keep him or not, they have to start looking for his replacement somehow, somewhere.
I don't think they
Draft.
can keep him. Their cap's not great, and they
Hmm.
don't like to push money forward. They're the opposite of Philly, where Philly has like 330 million of like dead cap that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
push forward and they keep kicking
yeah.
the can. Kansas City's always in like the bottom two or three. The only
They're the
person they take
Bengals.
dead
Yeah,
cap on is yes, they're the Bengals.
yeah,
Is Mahomes. They'll take
hmm
dead cap on him, which why would you not, right?
yeah.
But they don't do it with anyone else, and so I don't know what they're gonna do with that contract because it's brutal, and they're not gonna like most teams would just extend him 2 years, add 3 void years on there, right, and spread
Yeah.
out all that stuff, and you're not too worried about it. But they don't do that, so I don't know what they're gonna. That contract's brutal, but if you look at Travis Kelsey's last 3 years, right. He's gone
hmm
down in like every major category. So 2022, he had 110 catches. Then he in 2023 had 93. Last year he had 97. But yards, he went from 1338 in 2022 to 984 in 2023 to 823 last year. That's
Crazy.
500-yard difference in three
Yeah.
years, right? And then he's always been a 12. His lowest yards per reception is 12.2 yards from his first year in 2014 all the way through 2022. He had not
hmm
been below 12.2 yards per reception. Well, 2023, 10.6. Last year, 8.5. So the regression is real there, man. The last
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
years. Also, touchdowns. He's gone down every single year in touchdowns as well. He went from 12 in 2022 to 5 in 23. He had 3 last year. So
Yeah. I mean,
for me, it's like, are you going to pay him that amount of money when he's fallen off a cliff? And then he didn't have a good year in the playoffs either. And so, like you
no, he did
said,
not.
he that's usually been he's turning it on in the playoffs in 2023 and previous years. Well, this year he didn't. So I'm not paying him 19.5 million or 19.8 million. So I think it's either trade him or you cut him. I don't.
Yep.
There's no other option. I don't think you can keep him on the roster. I don't think you can renegotiate this contract.
And I mean, like you said, their cap space is not good. They only have 5 million in cap space for 2025 as of right now. So I mean, they have to do something because I mean they
It's less
do.
now because they did the futures contracts. They have
Oh yeah,
50 people on the roster now with like 1 million in cap space, and they have to sign one more person. And
yeah,
even if at the vet minimum at like 850,000, that leaves them like
hmm
200,000 or something. So their cap
yeah,
situation's not great. Now they have plenty of levers, right, to pull. Patrick
yeah,
Mahomes' cap hit is 66 million. I don't think they're rolling into the season with a $66 million cap hit on Patrick Mahomes. Like we said, that's the lever they've been willing to pull in the past, and I'm sure they will. I
hmm
guarantee, like he has a roster bonus of like 32 million, so I think you just pay that, kick it down the road a couple years, and they'll free up 32 million
yeah,
probably just there alone. So
yeah,
the other two levers they have is Chris Jones, but he's 31. They have a $15 million roster bonus they could pull there. But that's it, man. There's no one else.
not a lot of wiggle room. Yeah, I mean,
There's
as
not,
far as
man.
yeah,
There's
so
not.
I don't know.
So
I mean,
I
there's
think it's
still
guys you got to
holes.
cut. There's guys they're
Yeah,
gonna have to cut. I think to make up that gap. 30 million they could just work with that, right? But you got to
hmm
plan what 8 million or so for your draft class, and then you need about 6 or 7 million during the year for injury replacements and stuff like
yep,
that. So that really only leaves them about 15, 16 million in cap room to bring guys on. But we already talked about it. They need a left tackle. They're going to have to replace their right guard. The one person where I think they could do something with is Joe Tooney. He's got a 26.9 million cap hit. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they got to extend him. He's 33. I think you could extend him 2 or 3 years.
hmm
His base salary is 15.5 million. So essentially you could save about 16 million with extending him 2 or 3 years. And I
yeah,
think as a guard, I think he would age kind of well. So between him and Mahomes, you could probably get to about 45 to 50 million in cap space, and then that they could probably operate with that. So they'll
yeah.
be okay, but they have some big issues, and I think Travis Kelsey is one of them that they have to figure out.
I agree. I agree. Lastly, Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, outside of losing a few players, what's the weakness on this team? Honestly, I mean,
So they have some interesting things they have to do as far as like kind of resetting. Obviously, they have
yeah,
tons of core pieces. They're all right, but Josh Sweat, he's a free agent. I don't think they're going to be able to pay him. He's 28 years old and had
yeah, he's
unbelievable
about to get
game.
paid. Yeah, yeah,
Right, he's going to get paid. His cap hit was 16 million last year. Like he's going to make way more than that. Brandon Graham, they're going to have to replace him. He's going to be done. Makai Becton, they're going to have to replace him at guard. I think
hmm
he's going to sign somewhere. Someone's going to pay him after what they saw from him.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and he was only like a 3.4 million cap hit. So I think they're gonna have to draft something there. Um, Zach Bond, they got to figure out, right. He played unbelievable for them as their middle
Yeah,
linebacker. They got to figure out something. Well, I guess technically outside linebacker, N'Kobe Dean should come back as their green dot, but they're not gonna be able to retain Zach Bond. He's gonna go get paid, dude.
yeah,
Um, and then they have some other spots on the D line they got to figure out. Milton Williams, he's gone.
yeah.
Um,
He already said he
so
wants more money. I mean, so he's
all
definitely
those
getting.
guys do, right? You just
Yeah,
won a Super Bowl, so go get paid now, right? They're not worried about that. So for me, I think they do need to retool in some places, but yeah, dude, they're
hmm
gonna be good. They have all their main guys locked up, and with the way Howie drafts, I'm sure they'll figure it out. But yeah,
yeah. I
it's
mean, they
D line for
constantly hit.
me.
So
It's both lines, D line and O line.
yeah,
They figure that out, and they'll be great.
yep. All right, so that's it for playoff teams. We're gonna go right into what I want to say is the MVP of contracts for the past season. Best contracts, the most value for bang for your buck, I guess you could say. And I have a top five, so I will start with number five, which will be Derrick Henry, who's 11th highest paid running back at $8 million this year. I mean, you
Unreal
look
that
at him.
that's only the fifth best contract, right? Like,
No, yeah, that's number five. Yeah, based
right?
on my rankings. Yeah,
Like for
um,
me, that's like number one. I mean,
yeah,
that dude changed that team as far
he
as
did.
how
As
you
far as
had to
them having
defend
a running back
them
by committee every year for the past 5 years,
for
and he
sure.
stayed healthy. I mean, he did not break down. So he was He had 1,921 rush yards, 16 touchdowns on 5.9 per carry. He had a number
God.
one PFF grade at 94.2. He was the seventh player to have 1,500 or more rush yards. And like I said, he had 1,900 at age 30 or more. The
Unreal.
most yards per carry before him at age 30 on 1,500 or more yards was 5.2. He had 5.9. It's like you said, I mean, him and Lamar worked hand in hand. They both made each other better. But I mean, for $8 million, the running back market, before this year, it was kind of like our last 2 years, I guess. It was down. It was trending down where nobody wanted to pay a running back. Nobody at all. And I mean, this year kind of brought it back. I mean, you see the value in
Mhm.
what you get. And I mean, I know I
So
spoke
you
earlier
know this
about running
better
back
than me,
miles,
but
but
what are they going to do with that contract? Because yeah, it was 8 million, but it wasn't because they prorated most of it to the second year.
mhm,
The base salary for the first year was only 1.2 million. The cap hit was only 5.1 million. So this year, it's 12.89 is the cap hit, right?
I think they
31
extend
year
him.
old
And
Derrick
then,
Henry, right? I think you could
yeah,
extend him, spread
because I
that
mean,
out
he
a
didn't
couple
show any
years,
regression. I mean, that
right?
was probably what
Add
they were
some
worried
void
about, health,
years.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
I
mean,
agree with you. I think that's what you got to do with him. I think you have to extend him. I don't think you can go into the year with a 12.9 million cap hit on Derrick Henry, nor why would you?
yeah,
When
yeah.
when
When
you
you
could
can
just
avoid it,
extend
yeah.
him in dummy years and just have void
Yep,
years for the money, and
yep.
and you just pay him a little extra, right? And say, instead of 12.8, you're gonna make 15, you
Hmm.
know, but it's helping us kick the can down the road or
Yeah,
whatever. So yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Unbelievable though. What a signing.
Yeah.
I can't believe more teams weren't in on him. I can't believe more teams didn't want to pay him. Unreal
I mean,
that you could get him for
the
8 million. And
Titans just,
that goes back to my James Cook thing though. Like you want 15 million when Derrick Henry just made 8?
yeah, almost put up 2,000 yards,
Right. You want
Yeah,
double what he
yeah.
got paid?
Nobody has them in the same category of running
No,
back.
dude.
I mean,
15
so
million
yeah,
would be the number 2 running back.
he's
James Cook
crazy.
ain't the number 2 running back in the NFL. He's good,
And the run, I mean, I don't, yeah. No, I agree.
right? But
I
I would
agree
take
100%.
at least 5 running backs ahead of James Cook.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Easily, easily. Number four, we have aforementioned Zach Bond,
Yeah.
46,
Unbelievable, dude.
highest paid
Unbelievable.
linebacker. 1 year, $3.5 million contract. So he was the number one linebacker per PFF, a 91.2 grade. I mean, he made just huge plays
Incredible.
no matter where he lined up. His best season before this, like I said, he was a 91 PFF grade. Before this, his best season was a 71, and he had 2 seasons below 50. So, like, he played for New Orleans. I guess they didn't know how to utilize him. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe he just didn't care for New Orleans. I don't know. But he went to Philadelphia, and Vic Fangio just like flipped a switch and turned him into an all-pro player. It's just
Unreal.
ridiculous for that money. 3.5 million. Um,
Yeah.
who else?
151 tackles,
Yeah,
3.5 sacks. Like just unreal, dude.
yeah,
Unreal.
crazy. Number three, I tried to avoid the rookie contracts, but I mean,
Yeah.
some of these you just can't pass up. And Jaden Daniels being one of them, 24th highest paid quarterback, obviously because he's on a rookie contract, but just 9.4 million. I mean, we spoke to him
And
earlier.
you're also talking about like arguably the greatest quarterback, rookie quarterback season of all time,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he had 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, just 9 interceptions, almost 900 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns.
Highest completion
Uh,
percentage in NFL history
yeah,
for a rookie.
he was the first rookie to ever post a season line of 3,500 or more pass yards, 800 or more rush yards, and 20 passing touchdowns, and only the 15th ever to do it. I mean, that's as a rookie.
Jeez. Yeah.
And I
And
mean,
he
his
had what,
weapons are
3
not the
games without
best.
punting?
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous, and it didn't matter what you did to him because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they would say, "Oh, he's a rookie. Let's try to speed him up. Let's blitz him." He had like the
Mm-hmm.
best year against the blitz out of any rookie quarterback, like
Yep.
ever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Unreal. And only 9
again, you,
interceptions too for
yeah,
for the amount he had 480 attempts. So it wasn't like he didn't throw very often. A 1.9% interception rate. Like
it's
unreal,
ridiculous.
man.
And then,
Unreal.
they tricked us. I guess I'd say me at least. You remember on Hard Knocks? I don't know if you watched, but you remember the clip going around where they showed the Giants brass interviewing him and asking him about the play, and he seemed like he couldn't read it back to
Dable
him.
loved him. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, is he not going to be able to process, the quick NFL game? And
Yeah.
blew that out of the water for sure.
There are a couple things I do worry about with him. That offense was very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took way too many sacks. He got sacked 47 times.
Yep.
You can't do that. Now, don't get me wrong. That was one of the most efficient offenses in football history, right? Like I said, they had 3 games where they didn't punt. So obviously the sacks didn't crush him, and they scored a ton of points. My only thing with him is that we've seen it with Cliff Kingsbury. You can kind of figure out that offense. They got to get a run game to help him, because I do worry about a little bit of a regression. But and him running so much, I don't want to see that with his frame.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we have the same
man,
weight.
is he good? Yeah, and
I mean,
he can sling it, man. The deep ball is just ridiculous.
it's crazy.
Ridiculous. Unbelievable.
Yep. So number 2, Kirby Joseph, who's also going to be asking for an extension soon, I'm sure. 87th highest paid DB at 1.3 million this year. Number 1, he was the number 1 safety, PFF, 90.4 grade, led the league in interceptions, and he had a 60 PFF in his first 2 seasons, and he just flipped the switch, which is crazy because
led the NFL interceptions, right?
Yeah, and he had no help around him because everybody was injured, but he still dominated, from the safety position. I mean, he changed games. It's just ridiculous what he did for that team. I mean, he kept him in a lot of games just by himself with the turnovers. It was just always big play. Definitely kept that defense afloat for the Lions this year. Lastly, you were talking about the running back position, and we have Saquon Barkley, for me being the top, the MVP contract, 3rd highest paid running back. Oh yeah, it's top of the line, 12.6 million. But when you think about what he did,
12.6, man.
Yeah,
James Cook wants to get paid 15.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking, but I mean, Saquon.
It's the greatest running back season in the history of football. As far as yards, including playoffs, he has the most yards.
Yeah, the most ever. He had 2,000 in the season on 5.8 per carry. So you talk about that 12.6 million. Yeah, it was the 3rd highest contract for a running back. But let me tell you who else made. So Saquon was 3 years at 37 million. Gabe Davis signed a 3-year, 39 million for the Jags. Let me tell you Gabe Davis's stat line: 20 receptions, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tell me which one of those, which one outweighs the other one. Marcy, good point. Thanks. But I mean, to go along with that, he had 6 games of 150 or plus yards, and the rest of the league had 13. So he had a third of what the league. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, I wondered how much it showed how much better he is than DeAndre Swift, because anybody who got behind that Eagles offensive line played better each year.
Mm-hmm.
But you saw DeAndre Swift went to Chicago. I mean, the offensive line is totally different. But I mean, DeAndre Swift was good last year, but Saquon Barkley had an all-time season behind that line for 12 million. Is ridiculous.
Unreal, dude. Unreal. He changed that team as far as it was the same thing with Derrick Henry, as far as everything had to be focused on him. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, he made you pay, right? And it's just unbelievable. You saw what it did in the Super Bowl, right? I mean,
they focused on him.
The Chiefs had to sell out, dude.
Yeah,
unreal.
So, I want to talk a little about franchise tag. We are getting close to that, where they can designate it or place it on someone. They can start on the 18th of this month. So, I mean, it is in 5 days. They can start doing this. So for anyone who doesn't know what the franchise tag is, it's a designation that a team uses on one of their free agents for this offseason, and it gives them a 1-year contract, and it's at a set salary. That salary is, they take, say it's a wide receiver, they look at the top 5 salaries of those 5 wide receivers, and it's the average of that, or it's 120% of their previous year. Say they were tagged last year, and if they tag them again, it goes up 120% of what last year's was. A team can only use it once per year. I mean, on one player per year. And there's two types. They have exclusive and non-exclusive. We rarely ever see the exclusive, but that prevents the player from negotiating with other teams. You can do the non-exclusive, and this came to be more about whenever the Lamar contract discussion was going on. And what that does is whenever you have the non-exclusive, it allows that player to go out and negotiate with other teams. The original team can counter that offer, or they can get 2 first-round picks as compensation from the other team. And, they discussed that with the Lamar thing whenever there was rumors of him going to Atlanta, but then Atlanta didn't want him, which was beyond me. But, I mean, we never see anybody try to match that because of that 2 first-round thing. But it is usually the non-exclusive tag. Last year we had 8 of them. We had T. Higgins, L'Jarius Sneed, who then ended up getting traded. He's with the Titans now, living his best life, doing nothing, being in Cabo in the offseason very early. Jalen Johnson and Josh Hines Allen. There was a few more, but those were the main ones. So when we look at this year's, there are 3 that stand out to me. And this is some of these are guys that we've already talked about a lot. So we don't have to really hit home too much with them. But first we have Zach Bond. He's a candidate in my mind. I mean, like I said, he had the best linebacker grade. He's only 28 years old. I thought he was older, but he had that 1 year, $3.5 million. Spotrac has him at 2 year, $20 million projected. I mean, I feel like he's worth more than that. What do you think? In that defense, do you think he's worth more than
So
that?
the problem is linebackers. You can't franchise tag a linebacker because of the way the franchise tag's set up. Because they include Von Miller and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa.
You
as
could, but you're going to be
linebackers.
paying top dollar. Yeah.
So in 2025, the linebacker franchise tag's $25 million. You're not going to franchise Zach Bond for
No.
$25 million. You
No.
know, so I think if on Philly, it's got to be like Josh Sweat or Milton Williams, but
Yep.
that's the franchise tag for D tackle is $24.7 million. They don't have a DN franchise tag. The DN franchise tag is $21.7 million. It's less than linebacker, which is
Yep.
stupid and absurd. So if there's anyone, it's probably going to be Josh Sweat, $21.7 million. But I don't think so. I think if you want Zach Bond, you're just going to pay him. But
Yeah. Do you think he's worth more
it's
than
just-
two at 20?
no, and I wouldn't pay
No.
him if I'm Philly. I
Mhm.
just bring someone else in. That outside linebacker market's tough when you're talking like a coverage space linebacker. Those guys aren't getting paid like a ton. Your top guys are making like 12, 15 million, and those are like your game wrecker. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Matt Milano at his prime.
Fred Warner, yeah.
Dre Greenlaw at his prime. They're just not getting paid, man. So
Yeah.
I just anything
Don't think
under
it's
10
reasonable.
million, sure, and you could restructure it. Like you said, he's only 28, so yeah, you could do like 4 years, 40 million, but really the 2 years are void years,
Yeah.
and so really it's like 4 years and maybe or 4 million the first year, or 6 million the second year, and the second 2 are just like void years.
Yep.
But yeah, you just can't franchise tag an off-ball linebacker. It's
Yeah.
stupid
It's
system.
ridiculous.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So secondly, we talked about this a little earlier, but Sam Darnold, 12th in PFF grade, projected a 4-year, $160 million. So when you look at him, like I said,
That
he
is
was 12th.
fucking insane. Excuse my language, but who the hell
He
is
was-
paying $40 million for Sam seeing ghosts as Darnold?
I mean, I feel like they base their numbers just strictly looking at numbers and not looking at the bigger picture of things. You know, it's like
I mean, if
Tom Brady
Daniel
posted a
Jones
stat
could get
line,
40 million,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
we saw how
Yeah, I
that
mean-
went. I think that's the big thing is those guys kind of in his same bucket who've gotten paid the last few years, how bad it's gone. And so I don't,
yeah.
it's the way the season ended for him. There's no way, man. Like if
Yeah,
I could
I mean,
get
he
him
was-
for 18, 15, something like that, I would
I
probably
don't think
do
I
it
think
for a
he's
year.
I think he's going to test the market though and try to
Totally
get that money
agree.
because somebody's
Tot-
going to
I
be dumb
totally
enough
agree.
to overpay.
I
And
mean,
I don't
think about
know-
teams that need him, like Raiders.
Raiders, yep,
could
that's
really
exactly
use him. I
who
just don't know if they want to pay him, but they need somebody.
Yeah, I mean he
You know,
was
the
fifth in
Jets.
passing yards and
Could they do
touchdowns, but I
another
mean
run at at the Jets?
I don't think the
Um,
fan base would allow that. I mean
I don't
it
think
would be
so either, man.
every incompletion would be horrible. But then
Uh,
I mean to me it gets into the question of
Cleveland,
like,
like, um,
yeah, but they don't have what they're already paying Deshaun Watson and
yeah, but he's not
masseuses,
playing,
so
dude.
I
He
mean,
ain't playing.
yeah. Uh,
So
but to me, it's like if you're Minnesota, it gets into the question of like how much do they trust and believe in JJ McCarthy? They didn't really see him. I mean, they've seen him more than we have as an
it's not so
audience.
much
But I
for
mean,
me like how much do you trust in a JJ McCarthy? It's
mhm,
do I want to allocate the money to Darnold when I've seen what he can be, what he is?
yeah,
And could you get 90% of Darnold with Daniel Jones?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much of it is. I think it's a lot to do with the system that he's in with Kevin O'Connell. Honestly,
Right.
so my thing is like, I mean, I'm in favor of letting him walk and
Yep.
using that rookie contract with JJ McCarthy, unless he's just
But
looked
you could bring in a
absolutely
guy
horrible.
like Daniel Jones, like we said, Andy
Mhm.
Dalton, Jameis Winston. Like there's a bunch of guys you could at least bring in to
Yep.
start the year and see what happens. And
Yep.
then, you transition to JJ McCarthy. That's so much money that you could be using elsewhere when they have other things they need to fix or figure out. I I don't know, man.
I don't think they keep Darnold, but like in my head, if they do for some reason either franchise or re-sign him, you then do you try to get your value back with JJ McCarthy and trade him if you're keeping Sam Darnold to try to get
No,
something back? You keep him?
I don't see. I don't think you can. I think
Yeah.
the trade value isn't there for paying him 40 million a year. So sure, if you could get him on like a cheap deal, like say
Hmm.
you would sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, last year, and he overperformed the deal, and he's only going to cost 12 or 15 million. Like sure, you could probably trade him, but
No, I'm saying
yeah,
trade JJ McCarthy if you keep Sam Darnold.
nah,
Yeah.
I think they saw too much from him. He's their
Hmm.
future. He's cost
Yep.
controlled. And
Yep.
Darnold blew it, dude. The last end of the year blew it. You could not play worse than he did in those 2 games. And I just don't understand why you would say, okay, Darnold's our guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anything, you
Um,
give JJ McCarthy a shot, and if he somehow flakes out, then you just reload or you're back to
start
where
on.
you
Yeah.
start over
What
with a
was he?
clean
10th
slate.
pick? Is that what they got him at?
I
Somewhere
think
around
so, yeah,
10.
ninth or
Yeah.
10th, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give him a shot this year. You can't go 2 years. I mean, with a 10th overall pick, not letting him see the field.
Right. All right, what's
Lastly,
the next?
I don't know how realistic this is, but Chris Godwin, uh, not
Yeah.
unheard of. He was just
It's just
injured.
too
He got injured.
expensive for me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
23.6 million for a wide receiver. I think that injury is a serious injury.
Hmm.
It's not a broken leg or an ankle.
Yeah.
Um,
He's only 28, but I mean, he's been great. But I mean, he's been injured. This is not the first time he's been injured.
right,
Mike Evans is getting older. He's 31 now, but
right.
the other side of that coin is you spoke on it earlier, Jalen McMillan coming in those last few weeks and just like set
Right.
the offense on fire. I mean, for being a rookie.
And
So I mean, do you just roll with him?
wouldn't you want to structure a deal way differently, like than committing 24 million? The problem with the franchise tag too is there's no wiggle room. You
Yeah,
can't kick the road down there. It's 24 hard million against your salary cap.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it's not so much I'm worried about paying him that. Like you could structure a deal where you pay him 3 for 70,
hmm,
and have room in there to get out of it and to move it around and make it so the first year's low, like 8 million or 6 million, and see how he does coming off the injury. And then you push the money back so when Evans comes off the books in whatever 2 years,
yeah,
then you're all right. But man, I just 24 million hard on your salary cap just seems rough.
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, there's just not really. We're speaking on franchise tag options, but there's not really many. I don't see a lot of franchise tags being applied this offseason.
Yeah,
I mean, is there
I
anyone
mean,
else that you could
I mean,
think
there's
of?
T. Higgins, but I don't think they can
Yeah.
do it. There's Javon Holland, but I don't think Miami's in a cap situation to be able to do it.
Mm-mm.
Trey Smith would make the most sense, but we just talked about Kansas City's cap situation,
Yeah.
and I don't think they want to tie up 23 million there. So yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't think there's guys like it's just one of those years where there's not really a lot of franchise eligible guys. You know, there's
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
quarterbacks you normally have.
Yeah, there's no way. Like last year we had 8. There's no way on earth that we have 8 players get
There's no
tagged
way.
this year. No
No
way.
way. You could
I
see
mean, I'd be
maybe
surprised if it's
two.
4. Yeah,
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 you could probably
yeah.
see two just because if you know you're gonna re-sign one of these guys,
Hmm.
then putting the franchise tags on buys you time and gives you some
Yeah,
leverage
yeah.
because then they can't go to free agency, right? And
Hmm.
so it buys you time to negotiate. You saw that with the Arizona Cardinals with Buda Baker and James
Yep,
Conner,
yep.
um, but I just don't see it, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so I'd say lastly, probably have a few questions after, but let's go into the way too early awards for next year. It's never too early to start talking about gambling.
Never too early.
So I say we take turns. I'll give the category. I'll go first with Offensive Player of the Year. I want to say Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 900. I feel like, I mean, they have the Sonic and Knuckles thing going on in Detroit, but whenever David Montgomery was out, Jahmyr Gibbs showed why he can be a 3-down back to me. I mean, he just dominates every time he gets the ball. I mean, anything can be a house call for him. So, I mean, at plus 900, I mean, I feel like, Saquon's obviously an easy choice, but I feel like the workload's probably maybe lighter on him next year. They're going to be, what they can do in the playoffs. So why push it? But Jahmyr Gibbs seems like a good bet on my end. What about you?
For offensive player of the year,
Yeah.
mm, man, that's tough because I almost feel like it needs to be a quarterback or like a running back, like you're saying.
Yeah. Jamar
I
Chase again.
right, it's a good candidate. I almost could see like a dark horse, like Bijan Robinson,
Yeah,
underutilized guy that gets a new offensive coordinator and has a chance to like
for
really
sure.
blow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would probably try to go like someone more dark horse, like like him, like Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. Defensive player of the year, I have Myles Garrett, regardless of where he's at. Only thing that like if they somehow, because Andrew Berry, GM of the Browns, is being like stuck in his way about saying that he's not trading him.
I
I mean,
think
Myles
that's just
Garrett,
to save face, though, like save
you think?
value. Well, when
Yeah,
a player comes out and says, "I want to be traded" and demands a trade, you lose trade value, right? Because
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah. Because
teams
he
know
wants out.
that
Yeah, yeah,
you have to get rid of him. So then
yeah.
the team goes, "No, we're not trading him. We don't care. We have him signed," and it's to try to save some of that leverage. I think
Hmm.
if he wants out bad enough, I think they gotta like you can't have guys there that don't want to be there. But again, this is Cleveland and they're a disaster. So I don't
Yeah.
know, but that roster's a mess. They're not built to win now, right? You talked about the Deshaun Watson contract. If I'm Andrew Berry, I just before the draft, you got to do it before the draft. I
Hmm.
get the most amount of assets possible,
Yep.
and I run with it, man. If you can get 2 firsts and third or fourth next year, whatever,
Yep.
you got to take that and reset.
Yeah. Don't do a Luca Los Angeles Lakers trade.
Right,
Don't get no
right,
package like that. But I mean, I feel like if he
sure,
goes somewhere else, he's going to be rejuvenated to want to play. I mean, he already gives it his all. But
right,
being in a new system, because he's probably going to get traded to a contender based on what he wants. I mean,
yeah.
he's plus 750 right now. I
Well,
mean, I
and I
feel like
think that
that's
helps him too, right? Because how many times has he been playing with a lead and been able
yeah,
to be
yeah,
like the
yeah,
closer, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
with a DN like that, like man, you play with a lead, you can just pin your ears back, and the other team's got to throw the ball. Like that's what they live for, man. And
yeah.
yeah, I think that's what helps guys like Aiden Hutchinson, on that Detroit offense, and I think that's what hurts guys like, and that's what helps like Trey Hendrickson, but it hurts
Hmm.
guys like Max Crosby or even T.J. Watt, who are on teams that offenses aren't explosive.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
My dark
if he
horse.
went to Washington, like
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, oh my God, man.
I
Or
just hope he
Buffalo,
goes.
you
I
know?
hope he goes
Jeez.
somewhere that's like a good fit. Please don't trade him
I
to
want all
someone
those
else
guys
that
to move,
sucks.
man. I want Max Crosby to go. I want Trey Hendrickson to go. I just want some, the
Movement.
offseason's so fun, yeah, with like movement and trades.
Yeah. My dark horse for this is Jared Verse plus 2,500.
That's a
I
good
mean,
one.
he had an amazing. I mean, he was defensive rookie of the year. Obviously, he had an amazing rookie season. But I
Yeah.
mean, at plus 2,500, I could see him taking that next step, especially with the D line around him. I mean, they have to focus on everybody on that D line almost, so it kind of frees him up. He's not like the lone soldier out there getting double teamed every time. They got to worry about other players. So that's my
Yeah.
thoughts on that. So MVP, I'm trying not to be a homer, but Lamar, I mean, he's
He's the
regular
favorite,
season
man.
great. I mean, he's just great in the regular
450.
season. Yeah, I mean,
He's the favorite at 450, man.
do you
What
see
about
someone
Jaden Daniels at 950? That's
I just worry about that
interesting.
sophomore slump. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
see it happen to so many people, and that's why I have a dark horse for MVP is if that we spoke about the Texans and their offensive line. If they can somehow revamp it, I know their cap space is not the best, but CJ Stroud is plus 2,500. If he can get back to that first year, CJ Stroud, they
Yeah.
can improve their weaponry a little bit, especially that offensive line. They have Joe Mixon, who was
Oh,
great
that's a
behind
good
that
call.
trash line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth a shot. But yeah, I can see Jaden Daniels doing it. I mean, it's not unheard of. But I feel like Lamar until I mean, I know what happened this year. We're not going to go back and forth
You don't
between
like
him and
your
Jay.
possible Jameer Gibbs
Yeah,
plus
I
10
mean,
plus
but
10,000?
yeah, but they're not
It's
going to give
so
it to a
hard
running
for a
back.
running
Yeah,
back, dude.
yeah,
We saw that this year, man. It's
yeah. It's
so
just not
hard.
happening.
Yeah. There's
Uh,
some interesting quarterback ones that I could see do it if everything lines up, stars align with their team.
yeah,
Um so
J- Joe Burrow is one. I mean, like if they would have won the division, I
he's
mean,
plus
he's
600 though. Like he's
yeah,
so
yeah. It's not
favored. It's
worth it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Stroud's a good one cuz that's plus 2200.
Okay.
Um Justin Herbert's an interesting one. I just don't think their team's going to be good enough. But if
Yeah.
they get another piece on offense and he could put up some numbers,
Get that T
um,
Higgins or Chris Godwin. I mean, it definitely helped.
right. Stafford at plus 5,000 is always interesting.
Is that
If
him
they
in
if
Los Angeles or New York?
right, but I mean, if they run it back, dude, and they add another wide receiver,
Yeah.
um, he could easily put up the numbers. You just need someone who can put up the numbers. That's the hard part. There's not a ton of guys that can put up those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't really see
Not
any
gonna.
other quarterbacks that have a chance.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else that really stood out. Stood out.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes at plus 800 is a good one if they can
Yeah.
figure out the weapons and the offensive line. He's always capable.
Get
But
Rasheed Rice back if he can
I like
stay
Jaden
driving.
Daniels at 950. Man,
Yeah.
that's a
It's good
really
money.
nice one.
Um, Rookie of the year. There's no way to predict that until we see where they're drafted because somebody's going to make a
Yeah.
stupid draft choice, and we'll revisit that in a few weeks. But my prediction for AFC NFC next year is
Okay.
Ravens Eagles in the Super Bowl. What you think? What you got? I guess.
I mean, it's kind of chalky. The
Yeah, no, I
Eagles are
have a
plus
dark horse too,
600.
but
The Ravens are plus 650. Um, I do. I worry about offensive coordinator for the Eagles. We saw what
mhm,
that looked like. They
yeah,
gotta get that figured out, man. I do worry about that a little bit. And I do a step back on defense, right? Like
hmm
number one DVOA defense. All those guys played lights out. I do worry about a little step back on the defense. Plus the hangover, Super Bowl hangover. There's a lot
yep,
of stuff there. So I do worry about the Eagles a little bit. I just don't think the NFC is like that great.
yeah. Who's going to
I
challenge
love the
them? I mean,
I love the Commanders as a dark horse, but again, like, can they capture the magic? They overachieved. Are they going to take a step back, or can they get the pieces?
hmm
It's probably Detroit for me, man. But I do
yeah,
worry about both the coordinators,
yeah. They got the
right?
same issue as Philly with the coordinators. Yeah, yeah,
There's problems with all the NFC, man. You got the
hmm
49ers have issues. Green Bay, we talked about their issues. Like,
yep.
I think for me, it's the Rams. I think I would
That
go
that's my dark
Rams.
horse. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm going Rams plus 3,200. Um, and I'm gonna go Rams.
Yeah. No, that was my dark horse. My dark horse for the AFC is the Texans, and I mean that kind of goes hand in hand with C.J. Stroud, offensive line. I mean, because who else is really a dark horse? I mean, the Bills would not be surprising. I said the
No,
Ravens. The Chiefs wouldn't be surprising. So it's who else outside of those three? I mean, you could
it's
argue
it's
the
the
Texans have the best chance. You know?
it's probably the Broncos.
Yeah.
If we're talking true dark horse,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think the Bengals just need too much. I think they need more than just one offseason. New
Mhm.
defensive coordinator. Can they figure out the defense? Obviously, the T. Higgins. What's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson, Jamar
Yep.
Chase? Like, they got to figure all those things out. That's a lot to figure out. Offensive line, but plus 2,100 is pretty good. We're just talking like, dark horses here or long shots.
Yeah.
Um, I'd probably go Denver, even though I don't really think they could do it because I think they have too many things they have to overcome.
Yeah.
But 4,800 is just so good. The Steelers at plus 6,000, but they don't even have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can go too dark here. I mean, I think NFC's where you would probably go dark,
Yeah.
and then maybe, do you take the Bills at plus 750, Kansas City plus 650, Baltimore plus 650? I think any of those three,
It's
and then
reasonable.
you pair it with one of the longer shots,
Hmm.
like a Commanders at plus 2,200. But man, yeah, Commanders Texans or Rams Texans. I mean, you're getting paid,
Anybody
dude.
new would be
If
good
you
for
pick
me. I
that
don't want to
matchup,
see. Yeah.
man, you are getting paid, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I just want somebody new. I don't want to see Chiefs versus Eagles,
I
Niners.
agree.
Give
No
me
one
something
wants to
else.
see the
Anybody.
Chiefs again. Just
Yeah, yeah,
someone
yeah,
else from the AFC. And
yeah.
then I think Rams, Lions, those would be great, man.
Commanders.
And
I mean, anybody.
I
Literally
don't need to
anyone.
see the Rams win
Not the
again,
Cowboys.
but I do appreciate how they've done it in different ways.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, no Cowboys, man. Jeez,
yeah.
talk about long odds though. They're plus 6,000.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Um, so that's it. The only thing I wanted to ask you before we left was, where do you think Aaron Rodgers ends up? What's your gut telling you?
That's tough, man. I I think he plays it. I think he plays another year or
Hmm.
wants to play another year. I just don't know if a team wants to sign up for him
Yep.
um, for a year. I do think there's a couple good spots for him though. I I love him in Minnesota, like we said,
Hmm.
but the only thing I worry about is like he's a stopgap until JJ McCarthy's healthy, unless
Yep.
he's playing out of his mind, and then obviously you keep him playing, and there's
Hmm.
nothing bad about JJ McCarthy sitting on the bench and just
Yep.
learning for a year and then taking over the following year. So, I mean, it's kind of like a win-win. That's why I love that situation because he let him start off the year, and if he plays like bad, you put in McCarthy, right, and see what happens. Um, I do sneakily love him on the Steelers
Yeah.
if they figure out another weapon out in the outside. You cannot, and the running back situation, right? Like they got to figure out running back and they got to figure out
Hmm.
another wide receiver. I do think Tomlin could probably handle Aaron Rodgers, and they do have
Yep.
a little mutual respect. They've talked about each other, and then you get into like bad spots where like does he go to the Raiders? Like they need a quarterback, right? But
Yeah.
like, fuck, dude, that team they're not winning, and
I
so.
mean, I feel like he wants to go out. The two
But
teams
Pete
I
Carroll
see.
and Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah, I
though,
mean,
man, you'd have to be
Chip
Hard
Kelly.
Knocks. That'd have to be, yeah, that'd have to be Hard Knocks. Oh my God, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing. But I mean, like
Um.
Cleveland, can you imagine him in Cleveland? Like,
Oh God.
I think the only two spots for him realistically are Pittsburgh or Vikings because he wants to win now. They need
Mm.
a quarterback who can, just be a starting quarterback, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't need a
Yeah.
superstar. They just need a starting
Competent.
quarterback.
I mean,
Right.
honestly, I mean, it's down to, I mean, honestly, I feel like the Steelers is the best match for him. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like like you said, it's a step above what they've had at quarterback.
Yeah.
Defense is always top third of the league, top 10 or whatever, top eight. I really feel like that, and I don't see him. I don't see him wanting to play for a team that's not winning. Why would
Right.
he? He's not
Wouldn't
worried
you?
about stats. I
I
mean,
know as a Ravens fan, but like I would love to see him in the North, man, playing Bengals and Ravens, man, and
yeah,
like just those rivalries and the shit talking and
it would be there for
I
sure.
wouldn't be scared of him going to the Steelers if I
Yeah.
was you. But I'm just
No,
saying I think
no.
that would make great TV.
I just and
So,
the other one that just based on last year's signings is the Titans signed every old player last year. Why don't
I
they
just
just
don't
go ahead and
think
do it
he
again?
would go there
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
unless they
But
just like gave him some egregious contract.
yeah, but they did get rid of their GM, so I think that ship has sailed. But I mean, Steelers, Vikings, like you said. I mean, outside of that, I don't know about the Browns, but I don't know if they want
Yeah,
more
I
anything
did hear
drama related.
someone drop a really sneaky one. I just don't see it happening, but 49ers, if things
Oh,
go bad with Brock Purdy and the
like
negotiations,
mid-season, bring him in.
no,
Oh, with negotiation.
they trade Brock because
Hmm.
the contract is just not going,
Yeah,
the talks aren't going well and they feel like there's a
that would be
ceiling and you
fun.
need a bridge guy, right? That would be fun, dude. That would
Yeah,
be fun and it
it's like
makes
Kevin O'Connell
sense.
on steroids.
Yeah, dude. I
Yeah,
think you could make it work too. Get the ball out, quick manage the run game.
yeah,
Him and
it would be fun.
Shanny, that could be really interesting, man. But
Yeah. Well, that's it for the opening episode.
we
Definitely
wanted to
want.
keep it under 2 hours, dude.
Yeah, we there
We wanted
146.
to.
I know
We
it's gonna be
did.
30 minutes, 2 hours. We're definitely got it going.
I
But
mean, let me just say
yeah,
congratulations. I'm
appreciate
super
it.
excited for this for you. I can't wait to see what you got for this year and to
Yeah,
watch you flourish in this. What is your plans for the next couple episodes for this, transition before the draft? It's a tough content space right now, but obviously
yeah.
there's a
So
lot you can do.
I will be speaking on, each week I do have plans for free agency, talking about like kind of how we did tonight, top free agents, what's going to fit best with each team. But the overarching theme of the off season is me reverse power ranking one or two teams each week throughout the entire off season, breaking down their depth chart, their strengths, their weaknesses, their outlook for the season, what they have going on, what they need to change, and talking about their draft picks, what they need to do, and doing that in reverse order until we get to number one. And number one will be right near the start of next season, which is about 200 days away. But we'll make it through this off season. But I'm very excited for it, especially with the draft coming up. Draft pre. What do you like more? Do you like the draft or free agency? Because I mean, free agent class is not that great this year, but free
See,
agency is just
that's
everybody
my
switching.
problem with it. Like I love the idea of free agency, man,
Yeah,
and like but it's just always such a letdown and it's so dependent on the
resigns.
class and yeah, and then you get years where like everyone just returns to their team and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, I want to say free agency because I think it's exciting, but it's more so like the start of the league year for me
hmm
and seeing like who's getting cut or franchise tagged or traded than so
yeah,
much free agency itself. Just like I love the trade deadline, and then you get
yeah,
disappointed when it like doesn't, nothing happens.
for sure.
Um, but I think I love the draft more, man. I do. I
Yeah,
love the draft. I love the lead up to it. This is the first year where I haven't like really gotten into the draft already, like and
yeah,
watched the Shrine and the Senior Bowl and the combines coming up and like I'm usually watch all that. Like I record the practices for the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl and I'll watch it all. And so I've just been slacking, man, this year. And so I don't know. It might be free agency for me. Do you get all excited for the draft normally?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like it's everybody is so overhyped, I guess is the word. I mean, it's like almost like you're either the best GM ever to draft this player or you're
Right,
the
right.
the dumbest one of all
Like how
time.
dumb are the
I mean,
grades right after the draft? Like
yeah,
I understand
it's
we got to make content,
yeah,
right? But like
it's equivalent to like fantasy football grades. You know how ESPN will grade you and say you're the best team and then finish 0 and 14 in the
right.
regular season. I mean, nobody
All
knows.
based
I
on the
mean, it's
pre-draft, rankings and then,
yeah,
how
it's
many top 100 players did you get from the pre-draft rankings? And then you look 3 years later, and that team that was an A gets an F. It's,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, there will be lots of content, especially each week. Like I said, I'll be
are you gonna have
focusing on a
guests,
different
different
team.
guests, or
Yeah, yeah. So I want to bring in, try to bring in, like I said, majority of the weeks is going to be one team per week. So I can spend at least an hour just breaking down that team very in depth, talking about what they did, what they need to do going forward. But I want to have someone who is focused, like you're focused on the Bills. Obviously I have plenty of choices for the Bills, but I want to find someone for each team so they can speak more as a fan of that team to what I'm saying about what that team has going on in 2025. So I'm
awesome?
really looking forward to it. I feel like it'll really get people more knowledgeable about each team. Because I mean, a lot of people have that one team that they follow, and they're just kind of not fair weather fans, but they know the top layer about everybody else. Whereas I can get in there and break down each position and what's needed, and I feel like that'd be a good, fully encompassing the NFL prior to next season.
I love it. I can't wait. I definitely think it helps fill the off season when you can, focus on a different team and learn about
Yeah.
different teams, man. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah. So like again, I want to thank you. Like I said, I want to thank you for being on. Y'all can follow Jake at Jake FB Data. That's on Twitter. It's same for Instagram, right?
Yep, same for Instagram, and then I'm the host of Buffalo Blueprint on
Yep.
this network, Do Champions, and so I'm normally on Friday nights, but I won't be tomorrow night because it's Valentine's Day, and I'd like to stay happily married. So I will be on Sunday night this week, since there's no games. So catch me 9 Eastern time, Sunday night. I'll be joined by Don from Do Champions. He's our social media manager. Him and I are going to be talking about the Bills and the top 5 positions. We're going to rank them going into 2025, where we think the top 5 positions are, and then the bottom 5 and how they can get better. So join us Sunday night, man. But thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody too, giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so next week we'll do number 32 and number 31 in the reverse power ranking. So
Awesome.
tune in to see if your team is the worst in the league, according to me. But until then, appreciate it, man.
Yep. Peace.